Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another historical deep dive here on the GothamChess YouTube channel. Today we are going to take a look at the mysterious Grandmaster who made his appearance on the world stage in 1991. It is February and we are currently in Linares in Spain. One of the strongest chess tournaments, in fact the strongest chess tournament held up to that point in history. We are actually kicking things off in round number 1, and our secret Grandmaster is revealed to be Vassily Ivanchuk, who actually recently made an official change to his name, and it's actually Vassily Ivanchuk. His opponent, none other than Garry Kasparov. The man, the myth, the legend. At this point, it's 1991, so he's defended against Karpov again, the most recent time in 1990. This is the first round of the tournament, and why is Linares so strong? It features top 10 players. In fact, there are 14 players participating. All of them are some of the best in the world, all from the top 15, top 20. So it's round 1, Ivanchuk plays e4, and Garry Kasparov responds with c5. Now, if you don't know anything about Ivanchuk, he's got a creative, flashy playing style. First, we're going to look at this game, then we're going to talk about just him in greater detail. Remember, he's 21 years old at this point. Knight to f3, d6, Garry Kasparov going for the patented. He wants knight f6, c takes d4, and a6. He wants a Najdorf. But Ivanchuk plays bishop to b5 check, and the idea of this move is that at some point you will trade off the bishop, and in many cases you will then play c4 and go for a very unique structure to the Sicilian defense. It's not an open Sicilian, it's a more closed nature. Black has a few ways of responding, preferably not with the queen, although that is optional. Bishop d7, knight c6, and knight d7. Now bishop d7 is far more solid, but knight d7, the move that Garry Kasparov chooses in this game, is inherently far more imbalanced. And you say, well, how is that? I don't understand. Well, the point is that whenever this bishop ultimately gets attacked, it probably will take. Nowadays, people drop the bishop ultimately back and argue that this knight is misplaced, but white plays d4, and the other idea here is that when black takes, because this knight is on a non-standard square, far more normal as being on c6, you can actually take with the queen, which is a move that is very provocative. It's provocative because there's opportunity for black to attack the queen immediately, but white is going to argue that my queen can move backwards, but pawns cannot. And since you have already determined your pawn structure, you now have a weakness. That weakness is the d5 square, and furthermore, the d6 pawn, because it's a backwards pawn. It cannot move forward, and its pawn neighbors have abandoned it. They've moved further in life. Well, actually, the c pawn's just gone completely. So it's hard for you to push. You're guarding it, but it's hard for you to push it, and that's why you're able to put the queen into the center. Kasparov isn't a fan of that. In fact, he invites a capture on d7, and now we have the first trade of the game, right? Light squared bishop was traded off for light squared bishop, for the knight, leaving black with a light squared bishop, but, you know, bishops like space. They're kind of like cows. Bishops are like cows. Beautiful, there you go. They like free range, any farm animal. Bishop doesn't want to be, locked up in a coop somewhere, and, well, Ivanchuk clearly doesn't really have respect for his pieces. He says, you know what, I'm going to trade you off for those ponies. He plays the move bishop g5, and, well, he takes. Kasparov invited this, though. Kasparov could have played e6 and tried to go bishop to e7. I think Ivanchuk would have taken all the same. But this, this decision to trade off his pointed hats and keep his horses on the board leads to a very imbalanced position. White has a few things here. First of all, white has more development. White is already castled, and white is just a couple of moves away from finishing, completely developing everything. White also has something called more space. White is inherently controlling much more territory on the opponent's side of the board because black has not developed anything. Really, I mean, not at all. However, because of the inherent imbalance of knights versus bishops, the bishops will need a little bit of time. They will need to maybe move out a little bit, and then the rook is going to use the open file, and, last but not least, you obviously have the pawn structure. Super strange. Like, what the heck is this wannabe Tetris piece of pawns protecting a king stranded in the middle? Well, Ivanchuk here ends up playing the move c4. Now, this, according to the database, is a novelty. Like, maybe it was played at some point before 1991, but not in recorded databases. It could have been played in training rooms. It could have been played in public toilets. I don't know. But c4 had never happened. And the idea is very simple. Rather than putting the knight out, you want to put the pawn out first, and then the knight. And you're arguing this is better. You control more space this way, because your pawn goes first, and then your knight will go second. Okay. All right, well now rook to c8. That's very logical, and Kasparov is arguing I've got the open lines. I have a bad structure, but I'm going to have the open lines for my rooks. He's not wrong. He's 100% correct. Now king to h1. Now, you know you have two super GMs playing when one of them just makes a completely innocuous and random looking king move to h1. Like, nobody can really fully understand the move king h1. It's a very logical move, though. And it's a deep move. I mean, it's a prophylactic move. I mean, you would say, well, why is he not bringing the rooks to the center? In fact, where is he going to put the rooks? Is this rook going to c1, d1? Is this rook going to e1? You know, what's going on here? What's he going to do with his pawns? But he plays king h1. Why? Well, he's off the G line now, so, right, his pawn's no longer pinned. And, you know, maybe in the long run there will be some weaknesses on this diagonal. So he thinks that the king is safer on h1 because black has an h-pawn in the way of the rook, and it's actually going to prevent black from attacking. So he plays king to h1. And now Kasparov just throws the h-pawn. He's like, all right, I'm coming. You know, Kasparov has a problem. He can't move any of his pawns. You say, how's that possible? Why not this? Remember what I said earlier? This is a horrible move. Yes, you push a pawn and you attack a queen, but it's not rainbows and butterflies. Like, I understand at the lower level, it's like, I made a move and I attacked something. I'm so smart. Nah, you made a drastic weakening of your d5 square. And now white is going to utilize it. And then white is going to apply more pressure to you. Right? So Kasparov can't really do so he tries to advance this pawn. In fact, he tries to advance this pawn quite deliberately. But Ivanchuk doesn't let him. He doesn't let him play h3. He actually thinks that leaving this pawn in the line of sight of the knight might be better. And so Kasparov plays bishop to e7, finishing his development more or less. But granted, this bishop is renting out an apartment with no windows. I mean, it can only go out the front door and come back in. It can't actually see anything. So Ivanchuk says, all right, well, I might as well take more space. I mean, it's, you know, it's a competition. I need to push as many pawns to ranks as possible. But this is very good. I mean, he's just taking space. Now, one can make the argument he can also go here, stabilizing his structure, but why not take space if you can, especially if there's no weaknesses? And it's pretty funny because now Kasparov plays this move, a5, which immediately tries to make Ivanchuk make a decision. Like, what are you doing here? Do you want to take me and activate my queen? Or do you want to go here and shut down my bishops further? But in doing that, definitely give me some nice real estate on this c5 square. Now my rook sees your backwards pawn because your pawn cannot make any forward progress. Now, Ivanchuk thought about it, decided to go b5 after all. Kasparov attacked the pawn using the battery of queen and rook. And Ivanchuk, very simple. Not all of us want to make backwards retreating moves or the ego. This is the only damn move. No one cares about your ego, okay? Like on the chessboard, if you try to force something that's not there, like, you can take this pawn, I'm going to go infiltrate with my... No, this is an awful move. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you need to make the best move on the board, and sometimes that is a backwards retreating move to take care of the problem. Now here Kasparov plays queen to c5. Now this is a very big decision. Do you trade queens or not? Under what circumstances do you trade queens? Well, the attacking player, the person with the attacking possibilities, in many instances involving the queen as the aggressive piece, don't want a queen trade. And in fact, if Ivanchuk had traded queens here, Kasparov would have played rook c5. And what exactly does white have? Like, by trading the queen, you've nerfed your by far most powerful attacking piece. Now you cannot move this knight because it's guarding this pawn, and you can't eat your own pawn, so where the heck is this knight going? Even if it goes back and then forward again, it has nothing, right? So, what did Ivanchuk do? He did not go for a trade of queens. He did not. Because he doesn't want to trade queens. The person who is attacking and has attacking prospects does not want to trade queens. The person with more space doesn't want to trade queens. You listening? You made it this far in the video? Very good. Don't trade queens. I know, retreating, it's so bad. No, it's fine. The person with less space wants the trades. So Kasparov plays rook g8. Very natural move, laser beam, and Ivanchuk brings a rook to the center. Now again, it's really hard to figure out what white should do, because on the one hand, I want to kick your queen out, but that would lose this. A lot of people make that mistake, continuity mistake. They forget what their piece is guarding, so they make a move. Oh, I apologize. They make a move, and then, oops, right? Your piece used to guard it. But then, you know, where does he move his rook? Like, should he move it here, or here, or here, or here? He chooses e1, but why? Couple of reasons. Okay, number one, this rook needs to serve a defensive purpose at some point. In fact, it literally needs to serve a defensive purpose on the next move. How did I know that? I saw the game. I wasn't there live. In fact, I wasn't born. But this rook needs to serve a defensive purpose. Now, this rook is definitely a little bit more mysterious. It's not so clear yet what you want to do with this rook, why it's even here. Maybe you have long-term plans of trying to advance these two pawns, and the rook needs to support the advancement. Or you want to play knight to d5, pawn takes, and your rook will laser beam this bishop. Or, and I'm not going to lie to you, it ain't that complicated, and a move later, he moved his rook again. Right, so the thing is that this rook had a short-term plan, like maybe he wants to advance his e-pawn, he wants to play f4, e5, but once Kasparov responded by plugging that and disallowing, okay, you move the rook again. It's not an ego game. They are looking for the best moves and you're looking to advance, right? So Kasparov plays b6. That completely, permanently, forever, don't even think about playing this move because it is occupied by 3 things. Okay, fantastic. Well, let me kick out your queen, yeah? I'm gonna kick out your queen, and then I'm gonna... Wait, I'm so... Wait, because... Hold on. That square is literally patrolled 4 times. It is the most patrolled square in black's entire position, with the exception of the g5 square, because that square also has 4 patrollers. What? So this is something, this move is a sacrifice of a pawn. However, it is a poisoned pawn. There is no way to take it without surrendering something. So something that Garry prepared wholeheartedly to stop. Ivanchuk shoves down his throat anyway. And this is known as a clearance sacrifice. The idea is that you sacrifice something, but then you grant yourself access to something else. And now this knight on c4 exerts tremendous and nagging and annoying pressure on these 2 pawns. Now, Kasparov, had he taken with the b-pawn, would have allowed this pawn to become passing, would have shut down the activity of his own rook, would have drastically weakened this pawn. So knight c4 now would come with a threat of taking this pawn and leaving white with something called connected passed pawns, which would have been really bad. Connected passed pawns. Very bad. And that's just no good. And if Kasparov had taken with the d-pawn, the computer likes this the best. But again, how can you voluntarily do this? Here's the computer's recommendation. Meet knight c4 with this ugly move rook b8 as necessary. I mean, my god, that is ugly. That's like being put in timeout as a kid. And then when rook d1 comes, you have to play this super ugly bishop c8 because you have no other moves. Otherwise, you're just getting blasted off the board. Like, what is Kasparov doing here? I mean, is he setting up the pieces for the next game? So the computer finds this mandatory, and then it also finds king f8 mandatory, avoiding any queen infiltration and avoiding knight d6 check. So Kasparov had to play like this and then basically suffer like a Buddhist for the entirety of his, of his existence in this game and, hope for nirvana. And this is very much not Garry's style. So Garry took with the rook and said, God help me, we are going to figure this out. At least I have an active rook. The problem is that he's going to have to cocoon in some way. And yeah, this bishop pair really does not strike fear into the heart of anybody. And now Ivanchuk plays f4. This move that he prepared a long time ago makes pawn progress. Pawn play in this game, super important. The clearance sacrifice, and now pawn play and trying to attack with the pawns. So we get f5, Kasparov trying to fight back. Now another very big decision. When you analyze historical games, you take brilliancy for granted. You're jealous, I mean, you're not jealous. You are guilty of it. I am guilty of it. We just go through it. Pawn takes pawn, of course. But why? Why would you allow Kasparov to transfer? Well, here's the problem. If pawn takes f5, this is an awful structure. Terrible in all endgames, frozen. Black has not improved their position in the slightest. In fact, has just given white this square on d5. However, by playing rook takes f5, Garry Kasparov allows the infiltration, the switch that these players are so good at to the other side of the board, and now constant threat of going to c8. But king g7, and now despite threatening the switch this way, he now reacts to the king trying to run to the corner. It's in the way of the rook. g4, the final pawn push. He utilizes all the pawns on the board. And yes, some of the people watching might say, en passant. Yeah, but then queen and bye-bye, You're going to get blasted on the g-file. Just, don't take with the knight. Because then you hang mate in 1. That's normally how a Guess the Elo game would go. If you don't know about that series, definitely make sure to check it out. People would go, oh, I'm attacking the rook, and I'm also threatening, oh my god, I'm so smart. And then they just fail to realize the queen is guard, right? So it's never too late to hang mate in 1. Let's just be honest with ourselves. And, well, for this reason, Kasparov goes back to c5. But, remember earlier I said, when do you trade pieces? The attacking side doesn't want to trade pieces, right? Isn't that kind of what I said? I said trade queens, but this is a good trade. Why? Because it was black's only active piece. It was black's only active piece. The rest of them are kind of locked away over here in jail doing yard work, and now we have a beautiful infiltrating move, knight to c8. I mean, how rare is it that just in the middle of the game, the knight makes it to the back rank of the opponent, hits the bishop, and like no one can take care of this rogue horse. Now the bishop has to go back to f8. And now another beautiful move, queen to d8. I mean, like, just how, like, when have you seen this? Like, two enemy pieces plant themselves on the first rank of the opponent, right? Like, it's unbelievable. But it's all falling apart. The constant threat of this pawn advancing, all the pressure now coming in, like, this way. So Garry plays queen g6, which is actually a very interesting move, because if you take the bishop, you know, you need to worry about your own king safety. Okay, very important. It's never too late to screw up a game, because you need to anticipate what they want to do to you, and boop. Oh, I pressed the button, but it didn't, yeah. F5. And here's the problem. If you take, well, your queen's just blocked. And, I mean, I can just take, and you're going to lose the queen. So, he cannot take. He has to go back to h6. And now, ladies and gentlemen, watch what Ivanchuk does from this point forward. No one has ever done this to the world champion, and arguably the greatest player of all time. g5. The queen moves up. And the queen is immediately shut down. Pawn takes f5, attacks the rook, but the rook doesn't go anywhere. The final piece to get into the party attacks the queen, and Garry Kasparov plays a move that no human being should ever have to play, queen to h8. And queen f6 check, king h7, rook takes h4 check. The only move would have been bishop h6, which hangs mate in one after either capture. And in this position, Garry Kasparov resigned, and Vassily Ivanchuk won this game. I don't think anyone has ever done such a thing to Garry Kasparov. Ever again. I mean, at the peak of his powers, he was world #1. He was 5- or 6-time world champion at this point. Granted, they were all against Kasparov, but, against Karpov in 1991, but he went on to defend others. So, what a game. I mean, at the end of it, by move 38, Kasparov has every piece reduced to the corner of the board, and one active king staring in the line of fire against the queen and the rook and Ivanchuk's horses. And by the way, remember this lingering threat? It never even had to materialize itself as Ivanchuk won this game. Now, this was round #1. Ultimately, what happened in this event is that Ivanchuk won, and he finished half a point ahead of Kasparov. They won... I think a similar amount of games, if not, then Ivanchuk won one more, and it was ultimately this game. He won with 9.5 out of 13, undefeated. Kasparov had 9 out of 13, defeated once to this man. This was kind of the next gap of players. In chess, the generational gap is usually about 6 years. You know, Kasparov was, I believe, 12 years younger than Karpov. Ivanchuk was 6 years younger than Kasparov, so that was generation 1, and then Kramnik came another 6 years. That was 9 years down the line. But Ivanchuk really made his name on the world stage in this event. I know some people who have made it this far in the video will probably say, he was no secret at all. I mean, he was top 10 in the world. I understand, but back then there was a lot less top talent than there is now. And every strong player, as they come up at this young age of 2021, needs to make a name for themselves when they get invited to one of these big events. Right now, at recording, it's April 15, 2021. That person is Alireza Firouzja, right? We're always looking for this young talent to make a stamp, an impression on the entire chess world by having a tremendous event. And for Ivanchuk, it was this one. And later in 1991, in July, he was ranked #2 in the world. Since then, he was ranked #2 in the world 2 other times. And he's widely regarded as a fascinating individual who lives on planet Chucky. He's probably the greatest player of all time to never become world champion, although that is also up for debate. But I figured I would share this game because it's incredible someone was able to do this to Kasparov, especially at the peak of his powers. And we should all know about and appreciate Ivanchuk some more, in case you don't already. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, as always, I will thank you for making it this far in the video. Your support is very much appreciated. And if there's a game or a tournament or anything that you'd like me to cover, please thumbs up other comments, leave a comment, and check out the links in the description as they might prove fruitful for you. I will see you in the next video.